Lift off. Well, hello folks. It is March 1st, year of our Lord 2012. I'm your host and producer, Al Wilson. Let's see if they have my titles up there. No, they don't. Eric, could you put my titles up, please? Any rate, I guess this is actually a show like 346 in all, but there's only like one show a month now. Oh, interestingly, the prior program, usually I have to raise my voice to drown out all the attempted sabotage by all the noise and banging on the walls and everything that happens, because when you can hear it at all, it's deafening in here. But the prior show, somebody pumped in those sounds, studio sounds, that weren't really going on here at all. I think that takes some special tax money dedicated to that, so I feel complimented that I'm worth the effort to some of those no good, treasonous bastards. At any rate, folks, please focus good intentions, prayer, meditation, whatever. For Alex Jones, he is in excessive danger right now. He's covering the Bilderberg meeting. You may know that those are the roughly 150 world representatives of countries, crime syndicates, the Vatican, various. They probably are the only ones who know exactly who they represent and one another, to one another. But they are the larger organization, the political body, the House and Senate and judiciary and everything, and executive office, all in one for the global elite who choose who's going to be president in advance. And there's some Republican candidates. Alex said that on Coast to Coast AM, 790 here in Tucson. You can go to coasttocoastam.com to find out what radio channel it's on in your area, or you might watch it online. But in any case, that's very intense. Apparently they're setting up machine gun nests and everything. It's right outside Washington, D.C. and Virginia. And that meeting is on, and they're running scared. They're panicked, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. This could be interesting, a cliffhanger as it were. Let's see here. Let me play a couple of tapes for you. I want to stop all the Wacos going on across the country. The press is, of course, bought and paid for by the CIA. Through corporate ownerships and this and that and thus. And so the Nazis actually apparently found Solomon's temple and his treasure, bought a bunch of large corporations, and basically that's who controls Wall Street now. The CIA was formed entirely of Nazi spies initially under Reinhard Gehlen, only under the condition they were only to spy on Russia. They killed Kennedy because Kennedy found out they had become autonomous and were acting on their own for their own agenda and not even telling the president or Congress about it. And indeed, they kill anybody that even checks up on them. They actually planned the overthrow of America in America think tanks. My mother rented a house to someone who worked for a think tank and who, I guess, forgot where they had hidden some of their papers. And, well, at any rate, see if the media will interview me about that, or anything else for that matter. Okay, listen up.
President Obama was caught last week telling Russian President Dmitry Medvedev that he'll have more flexibility to deal with missile defense once the election is over. Didn't go over well with critics. President Obama.
Mitt Romney is not an insider, but he's trying to please the establishment. He will not stop the establishment agenda. Obama came from a Marxist background, but at some point when he worked for the CIA in Colombia, and they agreed to cover up his illegal alien past as a non-citizen and make him a star, he became indebted to them, and they can control him, and they do control him. He's not the president of the United States. He's only nominally. There are handlers for every one of the presidents that tell them what to do and what to say. In my opinion, only a person like Ron Paul, and that's why they don't want him and they hate him so much, would stop the government agenda. So it doesn't matter if you don't agree with everything that someone says politically. You have to ask yourself the one question: will he stop this agenda? Will he stop the crony capitalism? Will he stop the warmongering around the world? They have have to get good sources of information about what's going on in the world. In other words, they have to find out what they're doing, and there's several out there on the internet. My publication, The World Affairs Brief, comes out every Friday, is one of those. I concentrate on what the powers that be are doing every single week under every controversial issue. I try to put into that. There are others. Alex Jones does a good job on his Prison Planet or Infowars.com. Newswithviews.com is another good source. And by the way, if people want to get a free sample copy of my newsletter, they can email me at editor@worldaffairsbrief.com.
And the beat goes on, folks.
Wall Street is determined not to be regulated. Wall Street fears the power of the federal government. Right now, today, obviously, Wall Street controls the federal government, but that has not always been so. Under Roosevelt and to some degree under Kennedy, Wall Street did not control the power of the federal government. So Rockefeller has promoted the Rockefeller family or clan and others of this type of...
Who is third cousins to the Rothschilds in London, of the Rothschild Money Trust, a part of which are the group of private banks called Federal Reserve that the Rothschilds apparently own 53% of. So every dollar that they can arrange through their politicians in America to waste, that money they're authorized to type into a computer, then call it their own for merely typing it into the computer, and then charge interest to lend it back to us. No one deserves interest on money that is not nor ever has been theirs to lend, which is why the Supreme Court under the Nasara, means taking away, carrying away a burden, agreement, the outcome of the Willie Nelson farm aid thing determined there was so much corruption in the lending institutions that were controlling government even, that the Supreme Court authorized special forces to gain resignation papers from President Bush and both houses of Congress, and Alan Greenspan, at precisely the moment the remote control plane struck the towers, or a reasonable facsimile thereof. That was too lengthy to explain now, and too high-tech to be believed by most people. There he was supposed to announce that we were going to have unrigged elections for the first time in many, many years. We were going to stop paying private banks interest on money that was merely authorized for them to type into a computer without even a... Now, that's too much for you to believe, too. But bottom line is, well, let's carry on.
Promoted libertarianism, the Austrian school, and everything that goes with that. The anti-government mentality, it says government is the enemy. Well, I would say no. Wall Street is the enemy, and what's wrong with the government is that Wall Street controls it. And if you could break the power of Wall Street, government could be used for other purposes. Now, that's one side. The other, what to do? There's a mass strike breaking out around you, and you've got to, if you have ideological reasons for not seeing this, I urge you to put them aside. It started in Wisconsin about, 14 months ago. Reactionary governors, and these are, frankly, they're often Republicans. Reactionary governors are trying to do what we talked about before: break trade unions, destroy them, lower the standard of living, turn the United States into a low-wage country, and in that form we cannot survive. They want to roll back the economic rights that were won under the New Deal, right? The GI Bill said you have a right to a home, you have a right to a college education. No, say these modern libertarians or reactionaries or whatever they call themselves. They say no. So in Wisconsin, bust and destroy the public sector unions. In Ohio, an attempt to destroy the public sector unions, right? And that was defeated, and that was really the amazing thing last November. 61% of Ohio against 39% said, no, we're going to keep our unions, and public sector unions in particular. Right now, there's a governor in Michigan who says that he has a right to put in dictators. That is, there's a dictator of Flint, a dictator of Pontiac, a dictator of Benton Harbor, and he wanted to have a dictator of Detroit. He's already got a dictator of the Detroit public schools. So there's a lot of fighting going on in the state. I urge people, join that. If you want to see a mass movement against totalitarianism, just remember, whatever you think of labor unions, those are the only institutions that would have a prayer of fighting against the coup d'etat or the kinds of totalitarianism that people talk about. The only way that masses of people can fight back is through mass organization. So people who say to me, oh, I'm a libertarian, but I want to destroy trade unions, I have to say to them, then you're trying to destroy the only institutions that can prevent a totalitarian society. There's also another thing that's going on. The U.S. Postal Service, founded by Benjamin Franklin, is sort of a heritage for all of us, right? 237 years. And now we've got forces really in both parties who want to destroy this. This is a death sentence for rural America. If you're anywhere out of a major metropolitan area and the U.S. Postal Service is destroyed, your economic life will become virtually impossible, right? Because that's what the Postal Service is good for. So this is a huge offensive, and people, for ideological reasons, I think, have difficulty seeing it, but I would urge them to see it and to realize that for this year, the presidential election seems to be a choice between two very, very, low-grade alternatives, tragic, incompetent alternatives. There's more to be done in terms of these struggles. And then there's this Occupy movement. Now, the Occupy movement has been hijacked by anarchists and NATO agents and God knows what. But there's a lot going on, and people need, I think, to get engaged in that.
All right. Let's see. The press isn't telling you, but there are murders and Wacos going on all over the country, en masse. It's like when they don't tell you, you don't know. Again, it's possible to have a free press without having a free country. A lot of third world countries have a relatively free press in an unfree country, and they're murdered routinely. But no American media ever gets hurt because they toe the line perfectly well. They don't even try. They're hired from the Screen Actors Guild to lie to you. That's part of their contract, to lie to you. If they refuse to lie to you, that's grounds for firing them. It's part of their written contract, folks, from the Screen Actors Guild. They are some of the most heinous, despicable human beings that ever stalked the face of the earth. The media is just plain evil, folks. There's hardly any free press or even similar in America. They don't risk their lives to report to you. Alex Jones does. He's risking his life right now. He's bringing you all the data he brings you. He can prove it all. Very sound. It may sound like fiction to you only because the reality is in your mind is only what the press has put there, and it's lies, whole lies, and nothing but lies. So help them, Satan. Any case, okay, folks, they're afraid, these world leaders, these globalists, these like Hitler would always talk about the New World Order. Bush, by the way, which used to be spelled the German way, he belongs to a German secret society of murder and Satanism. And, of course, so did his son, so did their seventh cousin, Kerry, who is running against his cousin, George Bush, etc., etc. By the way, they say the wife of Bill Cheney was researching the historical, the bloodlines, and found that, amazingly, somehow, that Cheney is related to Barack Obama and George Bush in some way. Now that's a trip, but apparently that's in her book, or was, or whatever.